Hi folks, and welcome back to DIY Germany. My name is Lars, and this past week made some progress on our floating chicken coop build. Here's how it went.
Yeah, I shouldn't have cut that.
This year I had started reconstructing the framework in the chicken run. What I had slapped together a few years back has served us well, and it actually was a great idea for the way we keep our chickens around here. But it started falling apart, and it had to be renewed. First up was putting up a little more fencing, closing the gap to the run. And after that was done, I built this little tower, some 3 meters or 10 feet high, we like to call the refuge. The main purpose of this is to offer the birds a safe space, a cool place offering cover, shade and breeze during summer, and a somewhat dry place whenever it's rainy and wet. And as it turns out, some of our chickens even choose to spend the nights up on the bars in the refuge. And they don't mind the fact that it's cold right now, which might come as a surprise to some, but looking at it logically, well, in nature, chickens would live in the woods and sleep on trees, no matter the weather conditions. I mean, they do carry around their down duvet like 24/7, 365, meaning chickens don't feel cold, even in freezing temperature, to a certain degree. That being said, I continued replacing the frame to the point where I began construction of a new chicken coop. The idea of having it float in between the framework was based on the realization that this way the space on the ground will not be lost to the birds. We had a general idea of how this floating coop was going to be, but construction was taken one step at a time, and came to a grinding halt by the end of October due to a little health issue, which took about a month to heal. So last week I picked up where I left off, and that was putting a window on the side of the building. The frame was already constructed, it just needed a little cleaning, and then I prepared it for mounting. At this time of the year, the chicken run is not exactly in great shape. The soil around here has a pretty high clay content, and, well, this is what it looks like right now. To reduce the chance of finding my butt in the mud, I decided to spread some wood shavings that came from my planer thicknesser, and that actually worked okay. It was still muddy and wet and slippery, but this helped a lot. I've never done anything like this before, so all you pros out there, bear with me. I'm doing it the best to my current knowledge. This glass is, well, it used to be countertop glass in a small shop here in the village. That closed down, and they had that lying around in front of the door, and after they gave up their business, and I picked it up, and it's pretty strong. It's not perfect, there are scratches in there, but the chickens won't care. This is pretty strong. 6 mil is around a 1/4 inch, so I reckon that's not going to break. Initially I had planned to use the glass from a salvaged window, the one I used the wood from to make a mallet. But that glass was only 3 mil thick, and I quickly came to the conclusion that if ever a chicken would jump or fly against that, it would be a pure nightmare to clean up all the flinders, if even possible. So instead I chose this countertop glass. Well, I wouldn't suggest I know what I was doing, but I'm okay with this. The gaps are closed up with 18 mil 3/4 inch OSB. And that triangle at the top I left open, since at that point I figured it would likely turn out useful for ventilation. A little touch-up with some stain, and this part was done.
Okay.
On the side there were going to be 2 doors, so we have access to the inside. Construction-wise I chose to stick to the theme, OSB, so I got to cutting. And might have gotten a little ahead of myself.
Yeah, I shouldn't have cut that.
Well, I'll spare you the details. Here's what I ended up with. Now, while these are in clamps, let's see if we can use up any of this stuff. Well, turns out this should work. The doors were pretty straightforward, nothing fancy, just the OSB and some slats with butt joints. Now this is how I'm planning on mounting them, and I don't know, are these even called hinges? They're heavy and they should be able to hold this, because the doors are going to be heavy as well. But well, I am planning on using bolts here and here, and I will have to make the holes a little bit bigger for that. But I will have to reposition the screw. How deep is the hole? 50. Let's make it something like 48. Screwing bolts into bare wood is incredibly strong. Surprisingly maybe, but it is. Still, I want to make sure that the threads in the wood are strong, so I'll put a bunch of CA glue in here. And I'm pretty confident, in case I really have to take them out at some point, that the impact driver will get them out, despite the glue. Nice. So next thing up is I need a little, let's call it sill, so water can run off of here and doesn't sit in there and make the wood rot. I have 3 of these left over from a build that never happened and already marked center. I should actually get 4 pieces out of each of these boards, because I'm gonna split it in half and then make a diagonal cut. So that's 4 pieces each. Let's see if that works out the way I thought. Nice. You might have noticed, off camera, I added a little groove under the board to serve as a dripping edge. And this sill was nice and snug, so I didn't even bother to put nails in, which I did on the other door. The part the door hinge will rest on needed to be recessed in place, so I made a little routing jig for that. And it worked like a charm. A little touch-up with stain on the sill, and
Okay.
that was that. One more thing before we wrap up the building part for today. I glued and nailed the other sills in place. The cladding will sit on top of that, but first there will be some caulking to be done. So, that's the current state of the build, and next week's gonna be interesting. Finally, as I had mentioned last week, I went and collected some more pallets. The outside stock of that company's yard was almost depleted, but then I was taken to one of their storages, and that, my friends, turned out to be quite the El Dorado for me. I quote, "Take whatever you need and come back for more at any time." Yes! Around here it's very uncommon to own a truck, so I made the pallets somewhat packable and loaded up the car. And here's the take, part of which I will use on the Coop this week. And my wife and I gave some thought as to how this build will continue. And we made a choice that might be pretty confusing at first glance, a rather uncommon approach, but more on that next week. So stay tuned, like, share and subscribe, and leave a comment. Let me know what these hinges are called. Thanks. And as always, be safe, be good. Cheers, folks.